Thank you, guys. I got to tell you, it's really impressive to see so many people, filmmakers, and both from my generation, we have veteranos who have pioneered the Latino presence in motion picture. To my side here is Moctesuma Esparza, prolific producer, Enrique Castillo, an amazing actor, Jerry Velasco, who founded Nosotros, which is the first association of actors, and Bel Hernandez, who has Latin heat, who keeps us informed, Nancy De Los Santos, who's a terrific writer. We got some great people here who are going to be mentoring the younger generations, you guys. What I'd like to do is start off with a little 15-minute, 10-minute movie, and it may take me a second to get this on, but
bravo.
Yay, that was great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I see a lot of people that want to become filmmakers. I have a lot of experience. I'm going to try to tell you some of the things that may be helpful. These are things that I just accumulated over a lifetime. They're not all necessarily set in cement, and I would question everything I say. But I'll start off with advice, fundamental advice about how you approach life, because you need to think about the person that you are or the person you'd like to be. And part of that, I think, is being centered, being in harmony with yourself, knowing yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses. You need all of this in order to be able to make thoughtful, considered decisions. And directing is all about decision making. Wrong decisions cost money and time. Good decisions may save money and time. In this industry, money and time is what it's all about. And if you happen to do a little great art while you're at it, so much the better. All right, so I came up with some 10 do's and don'ts. Number one, do develop long-term and short-term goals, and keep your eyes on the prize. Know what you want out of life. Your directing, your writing, your career, or the job. Develop long-term and short agenda for yourself. You can look at 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. You need to think in those terms, but you also need to think in the short term. For me, I wanted to make my first feature film by the time I was 30. And I was also, however, keeping my eye on the short term. I had to get this job. I had to do that job. I had to get this show. And doing all of that allowed me to get to the point where I was able to do that, get a feature film done by the time I was 30. Do stay on top of the new technology. Anticipate the new technology. And if you don't know about it, well, learn about it. And this is really crucial because you want to know what you're going into, any kind of battle, you want to know what's there. An example from my experience, I got an opportunity to direct a series called Sequest. And I knew ahead of time, I'd done some research, that it had a lot of blue screen. I didn't know what the hell blue screen was. This was back in the day. Now everybody knows green screen and blue screen. Back in the day, I didn't know that. And so I did some homework and I went around and I called up people, hey, what's this blue screen stuff? And then they told me that there's blue screen and green screen. And so I learned about it. And I wound up utilizing it throughout all subsequent career of filmmaking. But again, it was because I didn't know and I bothered to do the research and find out about it. You don't need to be an expert in everything, but you need to know what you need to know when you need it. Do engage each situation with enthusiasm and confidence. Do the homework about the show that you're trying to get or the job that you're trying to do. Find out as much about the person or people that you're going to be working with. And when you walk into a situation, really, you got to exude enthusiasm and confidence. You got to let those people know that you really want to be there and that you have something to offer. The worst thing you can do is be timid. And I'll talk about that a little later. Do radiate goodwill and cheerfulness. People like to be with people that they like. Apart from the technical skills that you will eventually have to acquire, you got to have people skills. You got to know how to go into a situation, a room full of people that you don't know, and you got to immediately know how to make friends with those people. And when you do get a job, you need to let everyone know how happy you are about being alive and contributing to their job, to the work you're doing together. You need to do this because no one likes to work with someone who's a downer. That's just simple human traits. Mm-hmm. Be prepared for new situations with research about who the players are, what they've done, and any points of possible commonality. I wanted to do a science fiction series called Babylon 5. And I knew that the author of it, the main showrunner, was a science fiction nerd. Well, as it turned out, science fiction was what I started reading when I was 9 years old. It's what kept me out of gangs. And so when I went in for my interview for the job, I immediately started dropping names of science fiction authors. And me and this showrunner immediately hit it off. That applies to almost any kind of job or situation you're in. Look at your own resources, your own background, what it is that makes you strong, and see how you can share it with other people. Be genuine and honest. And you need to be genuine and honest even when sometimes it may seem like the wrong thing to do. I'll give you an example. I was offered a directing job to do an after-school special. And I read the script, and it was a very well-written script technically. Drama, it had an inciting incident, it had all the things that you need for a good drama, character development. The problem was, it was full of stereotypes of our people. I read it, and it was at a time when I really needed a job. And then I decided that I had to turn it down. And so I called up the producer, and I said, you know, it kills me, but I'm going to have to turn you down because this script really has problems. And I've sent you 5 pages, single-spaced, of my critique of what's wrong with it from the point of view of a Latino community. And I expected that would be the end of my job and the end of the opportunity. But I felt I had to do that. I had to be genuine. I had to be honest with myself. Again, know yourself. Be in harmony with yourself. And to my surprise, the producer said, what would you think if we were to hire you to work with the writer to rewrite this screenplay and then hire you to direct it? Well, after I picked myself up from the floor, I said yes. Again, the honesty, the genuineness was important. That producer and I later went on to do 10, 12 shows together. Do ask for assistance or information when you don't know something that is vital to the job at hand. You know, there's a difference between being confident and simply not knowing something and pretending that you do. You don't want to do that. Eventually, you're going to get found out. So remember that what you're doing with your work and with your interaction with other people is you're building your career. And people are going to remember how you treat them and how you deal with them. And if you are bogus, if you are not genuine, they will remember that. And conversely, if you develop a good reputation, that will go around. Word spreads. And there'll be people who will be calling them and asking about you. And you want to make sure that when they get that call, they know that they have to tell them something really good about you. Do treat everyone you meet with respect and dignity, regardless of their position. You know, motion pictures is an ever-changing industry, and people go up and down the ladder all the time. And that production assistant that is doing menial work around you may someday be hiring you, or may be able to recommend you for a job. And what you don't want is for them to be pissed off at you because you pissed them off or because you treated them like shit. Mm-hmm. So just for your own survival, much less the humane part of it, be nice to people. Treat people with respect. Just an aside, there was a PA that I worked with for once, or that worked for me actually. And I didn't pay much attention to her, and I could have befriended her more. And years later, when she became vice president of a national motion picture network, I wish I had. Do know your break-even points. How much abuse are you willing to take? And where is the line beyond which you won't go? And there's a couple of examples of this. I worked on a television show, national broadcast television show. The show star and executive producer was a real jerk. We were late for, we were shooting an episode of this show, and this particular individual wanted to go on a hot date and wanted us to finish the scene. And it was difficult to light, and it was taking time. And it happened to be on the day when the first assistant had brought his son to observe. And this individual, the star of the show, berated this first assistant director, called him every name in the book, right in front of his son standing right next to him. And the individual, the assistant director, had to take it because he knew that his break-even point was he had to take that show and he had to put up with that abuse because he had to provide food for the table for his son and his family. Another example, on the same show, they wanted me back. And that same star and executive producer, who was a real yeller, had yelled at me a couple of times. And when I was on, and of course I did a terrific job on the show, the episode, and the writer, showrunner, wanted to bring me back to do 3 or 4 more episodes. And I told him, you know what? I get paid the same for doing your show as for doing this show and that show. And they treat me with respect in those shows. And so I'm going to turn you down because you got a problem there that you should solve. Do develop people skills. This is important because you need to be sociable, friendly, accessible. And you need to learn how to inspire confidence. All of this has to do because we live in a world of interaction with people. And in motion pictures, there is so much interaction. It's not, in a writer, you can sit in your office and on your computer and write great screenplays, and you don't have to talk to anybody. But if you're directing, you got to be on a set with tons of people. I mean, when I'm on the set as a director, I have 100 people working for me. And I got to get along with them. I got to interface with them. I have to be in a social way with them that gets the best work out of them, but at the same time allows them to know that I'm in charge and that I know what I'm doing.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
So the last one is do network. All of you right now, I don't know how many of you know each other than being a postage stamp on this screen, but all of you should get to know each other, because down the road, you should be able to pull on each other as resources. This person should be able to go to that person and that person when you're crewing, putting together a crew, or when you need advice on something, or when you need someone to other eyes to look at what the project that you're developing. So we have a unique opportunity now, because I'm looking at, at least 20 people here, 30 people, all of whom can interface with each other and support one another and help get all of us there together. So do network. Now, my don'ts, I'll just briefly go through them. Don't be afraid of the new technology. Don't be shy and withdrawn. Again, we have in the Latino community, we have a tradition. Our parents teach us to pórtate bien. They train us not to rock the boat. I see a lot of shaking heads. To be a good boy or a good girl. And this, in an industry that prizes people who step out of the norm, can be very diddly. I see this when I'm doing casting, and someone will come on and they'll be timid. Should I sit over here, sir? And then I see someone else come in, and they'll come in with bravado, and they're ready to do their reading. And that's all the difference in the world. And guess who's going to get hired? Not the timid person, the person who's got something, who's out there, who's contributing. So don't be shy and withdrawn. Also, don't broadcast your fears and your nervousness. I was on one show where the guy was so nervous that after the second day of prep, the producers got together and said, we can't let this guy direct the show. They didn't even let him show what he could do, because all they were getting from him was fear and nervousness. And they were interpreting that as incompetence. Okay, so know that you have to be, even, aguántate and suck it in, and maybe put on a little bravado, but don't broadcast that you're fearful or in doubt of your own abilities. Don't be intimidated by someone's browbeating. I did one show where it was a big show, network setting show, and the producer director who hired me didn't want to hire me. I later found out it was because he didn't like to work with people of color. And we had one scene where we had a couple of people talking in a car. And traditionally, when you cover that kind of footage, you usually have a camera or two looking into the car, and then a camera on the right side, a camera on the left side. If you're cheap and your producer is cheap and you only got one camera, you got to do one setup, then you do the left setup, and then you do the right setup. Well, I missed one of the setups because I was in a rush, and because my other producer was yelling at me to keep moving. The executive producer, the producer director, when I showed him my cut of the show, berated me. This show is, we can't broadcast this show. This is terrible. This is the worst show I've ever seen directed. He said that to me. Y yo como pendejo bought into it. Now, I didn't know at the time that this was his modus operandi and that he had done this to another Latino and to an African American. And that was because of his problems. But I was unsettled, to say the least. I thought, well, there goes my career. So you need to know that sometimes when you're being browbeaten, it may be because that other person's problems and not just your own. Conversely, though, you need to listen to criticism when it's well given, when it's well intentioned, and you need to learn from it. And you need to be able to suck it up and say, yeah, I really screwed up. And how can I make it up? Don't piss someone off. That's goes without saying that you should try again to be respectful of people. However, there are times when you do need to piss people off. And this goes to the point of knowing yourself and knowing your cutoff points. I was offered a network series and I turned it down, and the producer who offered it to me was very pissed off. And then he had the head of the network drama department give me a call and plead with me to do this show. And I told him, this show represents the worst stereotypes of Latinos, and I will not do it. I'm sorry. I think I know the rationale. I know you're trying to do a series with Mexicans patterned after the HBO series about the Italian mafiosos, but this is not the way to do it. They called me again, and I turned it down again. And that year, I did not work for NBC. But to me, it was worth it. Know your cutoff points. Because to me, what it really was about was my own personal integrity and my own personal sense of who I am. Know yourself. Be in harmony with yourself. Don't be afraid to leave a comfortable position or move on to an unknown or untried position. Life is not supposed to be hunky-dory all the time. There are going to be moments when you need to take a risk. And so be ready to take that risk when the opportunity comes. Be as prepared as you can and know that you may fail, but take that risk anyway. And when you do fail, don't be disheartened. Learn from it. That old adage still works. Pick yourself up and start all over again. But learn from that experience. And lastly, don't lose sight of your long-term and short-term goals, but be willing to modify them as reality impinges on you. All right, so that's my advice. And I'm open to questions.
That was bravo. That was very powerful. Thank you so much to